Good evening, everyone. We are right at 6 o'clock, but we'll wait another minute or two for a few folks to join in. So we do, let's see, we do have all city councilors here. So we'll begin in, like I said, just a minute or so. All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight is our May 10th meeting of our regular meeting for the Trinidad City Council. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. This calls the meeting to order at this point. And I have to switch back. I only have one monitor tonight, so I have to switch back and forth. Looks like our first order of business tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and point in the appropriate direction. All right. We'll start with reporting out from closed session. Actually, tonight we have no reportable information from closed session, but look for further information regarding the two topics, the city manager personal performance evaluation and chief water plant operator position in future meetings. So tonight I would ask the council to consider the agenda. Are there any substantive changes needed for tonight's agenda from the council? Any public comment regarding tonight's agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion for tonight's agenda? David?
Make a motion that we accept tonight's agenda.
Second.
We have a first from Grover and a second from Miss Kelly. I see, Paula, that your hand is up. Did I not give you enough time for public comment regarding tonight's agenda?
Yeah, I'm a little slow. I'm sorry. I missed what you said about the water report. Could you briefly?
Paula, we are just talking about the agenda. This is all part of the basic information to start the meeting off. We're approving the agenda for tonight. That's it.
Right, but you made a comment about the engineering. Didn't you make a comment about the engineering before?
Nope.
I must be hallucinating. Okay, sorry.
No worries. All right, so we have
I
a
think
first.
she meant about the closed session. You just mentioned we had that as one of the topics, but
Right,
nothing
but-
reportable.
But no reportable actions were taken by the council from closed session. So that's what I said. So moving it back to council, we have a first from Grover, a second from Kelly. Mr. Adams, are you able to do roll call votes for all of our votes tonight?
Happy to.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Let's start with, so we got a motion, Grover, second, West, to approve the agenda submitted. We'll start with Council Member Grover.
Aye.
West,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Mayor Ludwig.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving along to, we have our minutes from the April 12th meeting. Counselors, any substantive additions, deletions, changes for the minutes from April 12th? Nope. All right. At this point, I'm opening it up to public comment from the meeting minutes from April 12th. Any public comments regarding substantive changes for the minutes?
Mayor, this is Mike Morgan,
Go ahead.
Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast Hotel. I've spoken with Eli about this issue. Gabe's very well aware that our business is not called the Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast. We're not the Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast Inn. We're not anything but the Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast Hotel. Eli has assured me that he'll have Gabe adjust the minutes accordingly. And there's other issues that we're working out with personnel that don't need to be discussed at this time.
Okay. Any other public comments regarding our minutes from April 12th? All right, seeing none. I apologize for eating a bite here between my words. Bringing it back to council. Do we have an approval for the minutes from April 12th?
I'll make that motion that we approve the minutes for April 12th.
I'll second.
First from Grover, second from West. Mr. Adams.
The Councilmember West,
Yes.
Grover,
Yes.
Kelly,
Aye.
Tuttle,
Yes.
and Ludwig.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll move on to council reports and committee assignments. So starting with, on my screen, Miss Kelly.
I just have a couple of quick things. We had a meeting of the California Coastal National Monument, or CCNM team. They're working on their 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. And so that was discussed. The priority initiatives include inclusivity within the CCNM Trinidad Gateway Group and in programming. They're going to continue to promote successful outreach events like the CCNM Festival and Trinidad Appreciation Weekend. And by the way, the Trinidad Appreciation Weekend they're looking to do in, I believe, late September now. And then they continue with scientific monitoring, the Seabird Community Science Program, and incorporating ocean safety into their community messaging, establishing a coordinated signage project. And so we're also discussing with them what we're doing on the trail committee with regard to signage. So that was a good meeting, and they're still working on their strategic plan. Jack will talk about the trails committee, but I did want to mention that a group of 4 willing volunteers walked the Trinidad City Trails and updated the 2016 signage inventory. So thanks to those folks, Anita and Carol. Becky was also one of the volunteers, but wasn't able to walk the trails. Water Advisory Committee was my third one, and we are in the process of scheduling the first of the kind of reconvened meetings, and that will be hopefully scheduled late May, early June. And the first meeting is really just going to focus on selecting a chair for the committee and a review of the committee purpose, how it can best serve the community going forward and the council. And we're also going to review actions taken to date. So that's going to be kind of a kickoff meeting, and that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. West, any updates for us?
Yes, I'm going to bring up 2. One's just a quick one. It's from HCOG. It's May is bicycle month. They'll have a lot of activities going on. I think a lot have already gone past, but it is Humboldt's bike month. So if you like biking and you want to find out information, you can go to HCOG and get more information about what their celebrations are, how they're celebrating. And also it's bike month, Humboldt.org is another place you can go. There's information about the housing crisis, the HCOG website, which I didn't write down the correct site, so I'm going to have to look that up. But it's the there's money for creative ideas about housing. So hopefully we'll get some more information of things we might be able to do here having to do with housing. We're constantly hearing about last chance grade. It looks like May 25th, there's going to be a big virtual update. I'll hear more about that probably this month and see if I can get something back to you. And every place else, everything's beginning to move. So even though it takes forever, there will be the Indianola overcrossing is getting a little closer. They're pretty excited about that, and also the whole Broadway change is taking place. So that will be things you'll be hearing about too. And so, good information about HCOG. Cheryl mentioned the Trails Committee. We think we've got some steps that we're taking that we think are going to take place soon. The first will be that we hopefully will get out and get some posts, at least some of the posts that are right now looking pretty bad. We hope very soon we'll be able to get out and replace these posts with new posts. We do have a lot of posts in storage right now. So we're hoping to at least update or improve or change the posts that are currently in the ground. We'll remove the ones that are getting old or maybe aren't standing up properly and see about getting some new ones in. So first step is just getting those 4x4 posts put into places where right now they exist. We're also looking at getting the steps to the Trinidad Head started. We think we've got kind of momentum in that way, and hopefully Eli will have some plans together on how we can proceed, and maybe we'll see those steps get completed before the summer comes along. There's other things that are going on with the Trails Committee, but we're still kind of working through a lot of them, but they have a lot. I will tell you that Cheryl and her crew, including Anita, who's online now, did a fantastic job of putting together a look at the trails and what we can look at in the future. And I think from that already we're working on trying to find ways to map out the trails so people who come to our community can see them. So it was a very productive meeting. I think we're stepping in the right direction. Hopefully we'll have more good information at our next meeting in a couple of months. Cheryl, is there anything I missed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. Tuttle.
Cheryl and I had a ad hoc meeting with the Yurok tribe from Klamath, and that was done over a Zoom call last Monday, and it was brought to my attention as a new member here that the location of where they want to put the lighthouse is basically not appropriate for what they would like. They feel it's an affront to their sacred heritage and ancestral land. So that was brought to my attention, and I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention at this meeting. Cheryl, do you have anything to add from that meeting?
No, I thank you for mentioning it. I wasn't sure if Eli was going to cover that in his report or if we should. So I appreciate you bringing it up. And it was a good hour and a half long meeting. And I think one of the concerns also that was raised was about the government to government meeting process. And so we talked a bit about how do we reconcile the Brown Act vis-a-vis, I think it's SB 18, the legal requirement to have government to government meetings with the tribe. And I know we've discussed that at past council meetings, but that is something the Yurok tribe would like it to have us look at again. And then, yes, we talked at length about the Trinidad Memorial Lighthouse being down so close to in proximity to Trinidad Head is of great concern to the Yurok tribe, and they would like us to revisit that decision. So,
and perhaps then for Jack and Cheryl, as well as Eli, of course, knows this, because we have retained legal services from a firm, and I believe the Sacramento area, that specializes in government to government relationship. So if the Yurok tribe wishes to revisit our government to government policy that I can't remember, I want to say about 6 months ago that we put into action, perhaps that might be an avenue that the city can pursue with that. So just reminding folks that we did that. All right, Mr. Grover, any updates from you?
That
Pardon
was
me,
a
Mayor.
good segue into my, pardon me?
Go ahead, David.
Oh,
You know what? I have a question to ask Cheryl and Councilmember Tuttle, if I may.
Go ahead.
Was that only the Yurok tribe, or was that input from the other tribes and the Ancestral Society as well about the lighthouse?
So I happened to have a conversation back when I was on the planning commission, and so that's a really good question. So it was the Yurok tribe that does not agree with the placement, as well as Taz, the Tri Ancestral Society, also had some very deep concerns. The Rancheria, of course, another of the tribal entities or groups, is in favor of it, because they were actually one of the co-applicants. Does that answer your question, or?
Thank you. Yeah, it did.
well, it's a
Pardon
segue
me.
into my report anyways, because I did go with Jack and we did meet the Surrey Ancestral Society with the Coastal Conservancy and other representatives of the, I believe the Yurok and the Rancheria were had somebody there. So we were getting a lot because our government policy is in place and it is working, as far as I can tell. So everybody's getting notice, and as for like the signage and everything that everybody else talked about. So we're really all focused on that as a council, because that's a main part of Trinidad is the trails. It's a main reason a lot of people come here, because they want to walk the trails and look at the ocean. So we're on it for that. I was able to also, for the next part of my report, attend the Redwood Coast Energy Authority Board of Directors meetings. That was my last meeting there. I got them prepared. I ushered Councilmember Jack Tuttle in for next month, so he'll be able to see what they do there. It is one of the most important joint powers authorities in the area. That and REDAC with economic development and stuff like that is they're really tied in together with the goings on of infrastructure and how we're going to network into the next once we get rid of fossil fuels and get into this offshore wind, where the RCA is just growing really exponentially. And I think it's the place to back up, because we're going to transition into a thing so that we won't be in a situation we are with the cost of oil fluctuating, determining how much we spend on getting around in our power use. So it's a good thing. Yeah, I'm gonna miss going to that one, but I'll find another way in there. They wanted the community advisory committee wanted me to. So that's it for my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grover. And that dovetails with what I experienced with Redwood Region Economic Development, who in conjunction with what you were saying, Dave, with the influx of employment needed for wind farms and all these different efforts that the city is doing towards sustainability, Redwood Region Economic Development is well aware of the fact that the housing in this area is not right now suited to meet increased influx of people moving to the area for these industries and so on. So I like the fact that our meetings that we're going to with HCOG and REDEC and RCA and whatnot are all really kind of talking about a smaller number of things that they can solve together, instead of everybody working on their own and not really knowing what's going on. So that's really the only addition I have for tonight. At this point, we will move into our staff report. And my only interest really is just to make sure that folks who are interested in our water situation really make sure they check out Eli's staff report, and then obviously what he'll share tonight regarding our work with Pacific Watershed. So Eli, I turn it over to you for our staff report.
Okay, thank you. So in the staff report, I do comment about the Verizon cell site decommissioning. And I did use the verbiage in there where I said about once the birding season is over, So it was made clear to me that that should be reading the bird nesting season. So the bird nesting season is going on, and as a result, they will not be doing the decommissioning if the birds are nesting. They will go ahead and do a nest birding survey this month. And if the birds are not nesting in the area where the cell tower is, then they can proceed probably around the 25th of May and after the 25th of May. So it depends on the survey of the birds nesting. So I wanted to make that clear. Secondly, with the Verizon cell phones, I do have 2 Verizon phones, and I am getting like 3 bars on one. I've got 1 bar currently on the other one. But I do want any resident that has Verizon, if they could let us know how their coverage is, because they have turned off the Trinidad Head cell site. And we're currently using both the Quarry Road site, cell site, and then also the West Haven site. So Quarry Road and West Haven are serving the city of Trinidad. And then it was brought to my attention that there was some calls that along Scenic where it was breaking up. So, you know, let us know. We just want to make sure if things aren't working properly, we can share that information with Verizon. Secondly, the Stormwater project is progressing, currently planned to be completed by the end of June. Most of the work, which is along where the harbor is and along Edwards, which is currently going on, is planned to be completed for the most part before Memorial Day holiday weekend. So it is going along well. There will still be some temporary water shutoffs, and we'll let you know when that happens. We'll notify the residents roughly 10 days in advance. The other thing that our mayor was indicating, we had a meeting where a couple members of the council, the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, myself, our city engineer, and representatives from Pacific Watershed Associates had a meeting last week. We were looking over maps, talking about the various area around the water plant. So far, 15 vacant parcels have been identified, and they will be contacted shortly to find out, sending letters to them and find out the interest as far as either leasing or selling a portion of their vacant parcel. And this would be to accommodate storage of pre-treated water. And that's all that I have currently. And then our first agenda item tonight will be Phil Godman, who is from Coleman Engineering, and that will be item number 1, and he'll talk about the water plant operations. So I'll just turn it back to the council, and then just so you'll be aware, we'll have more on water coming up soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Eli. And just my addition from that meeting with Pacific Watersheds and GHD, the 15 parcels were ranked based on the site characteristics. So how much flat land, the flatter the land, the less engineering required, and so on. The distance from the water plant, the distance to nearby roads, which would be used much easier to lay some pipe down from a tank nearby when there's a road that can get you back to the water plant, stuff like that. So really promising stuff, and really looking forward to seeing the benefits of that effort. So just wanted to put that out there. Any other questions, comments on any of Eli's staff report from the council or from the general public?
I just want to make a comment too. I appreciate watching this new infrastructure go in. It's really quite impressive, and it's, you know, it's going to last for decades. It's really nice to see that happening. Good job, everyone involved.
Well, and just to let folks know, some big leaks were identified in the city's water distribution system, and identified quickly and earmarked for repair quickly. So, having a close relationship with our local contracting firms and just there's a lot of people paying attention right now, and it was good to see a very leaky system addressed very quickly, and grateful that it wasn't in a period of low. I mean, it was happening literally while it was raining. So we were in good shape. But other questions, comments? I see Ms. Levine, that your hand is up.
Yes, according to the contract signed with PWA, they were going to provide an itemized invoice every month. So for the 15 vacant parcels identified, what was the cost of that?
Eli, have they billed us for that? It happened
No, not
a
for
week ago.
not for that one. We
Okay.
did receive a bill, but it was for the 3 reports that were prepared for the state that were needed as far as our water rights for Luffenholtz Creek. So we do have that itemized bill, but we haven't received the bill yet for those lands, vacant parcels.
And just so you know, Paula, we met with them last week, and so it's not common to get a bill that quickly from a firm.
Right, for the past bills for getting the permits, can you send me what it cost? The information about what it cost? You've been billed for that, correct?
It's available at the at Town Hall. You can get a copy of it.
A public records request, you can go to the town hall and ask for what the city has done. Gabe or Anton can help you out with that.
I believe I requested that a few weeks ago and I never got any information, but I'll request it again.
Yeah, that came in like within the past week.
I see. Okay, I'll remind them.
Other questions, comments regarding the staff report?
Your Honor, I have a comment.
Go
Mike
ahead.
Morgan. Eli, you mentioned Verizon, but I just wanted to give you an update on our AT&T service is better and stronger. It might be because we have better devices now. I'm not sure. I don't have old devices, but we're getting LTE coverage now at 3 bars in places we never had coverage before. And our guests are reporting that the cell service is great here too. I'm just guessing because we're further out on the bay from the tower, we probably won't have as many issues as Scenic Drive. But anyway, that's the AT&T comment I had for you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments for the staff report? All right, seeing none, we will move on to items from the floor. I like to read this just to make sure I'm covering my bases. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or staff. Council and staff responses will be minimal for non-agenda items. At this point, do we have any items from the floor?
This is Mike again. I have an item, if I may.
Go ahead.
All right, basically, it's dealing with the TOT. We were surprised to not see this issue continued on the agenda to speak about tonight. So I resent a letter that I didn't receive a response from last month on the 14th. And I'll just read a summary of a letter that I sent to the manager and copied to the council and filed yesterday or today. And it's very short. Mr. Nafa, as of May 9th, 2022, our business, Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast Hotel, has been consulted on how to proceed with refunding our guests. We have been notified of the city's intent. We haven't been notified of the city's intentions. We haven't any process for immediately returning all the payments the city required us to charge, collect, account for, and pay them under penalty of fine and threat of litigation. Weekly since April's meeting, we have requested a copy of the signed resolution 2022-06. We received it after almost a month today and online last night. We want a city letter for our hundreds of guests entitled to their money back. It should explain what happened, include the resolution 2022-06, and some paperwork that the guests may send back to us for verification of their stay and the amount they are owed. We could then submit their verified paperwork to the city for a check to be sent by the city or sent by us if the guest wants to preserve their privacy. Businesses are entitled to costs involved. Faced with their mistakes by my letter January 19th, 2022, the city of Trinidad continues to irresponsibly drag this all out. Seems they are doing all they can to keep ill-gotten taxes they forced us to collect from our guests and pay them. The other issue I have regarding this, I spoke with Eli about this morning. In January, I requested city signature and date requirements and whatever filing paperwork is necessary for a citizens initiative to be put on the next ballot. As I gather signatures for my city councilman campaign, I would also like to gather signatures for a few initiatives. And yes, one would be keeping the tax at 8% for 7 years and additionally requiring the city to return all improperly raised guest tax increases since 2011. First, to our guests, and the balance to a fund that supports the businesses which the city required to charge, collect, account, file, and pay under penalty of fine and threat of litigation. I expect the city staff will concurrently provide this information as they gather the manager's information to put a 4% increase, at least that's what I've heard, on the next ballot. Thank you.
All right, Patty, I see that your hand is up.
Yes, can you hear me? I'm on a phone.
I hear you very well.
Thank you. I hadn't intended to speak tonight, but I listened on the phone to the G2G meeting with the Yurok tribe last week, in which Ms. Kelly and Mr. Tuttle participated. There is a California Coastal Commission coastal development permit before the California Coastal Commission, now 899 pages and counting, based on the approval of the city grading permit last June. The Trinidad Civic Club and the Trinidad Rancheria are co-applicants. And I think it might be useful, since so many years have transpired with leading up to this relocation of the lighthouse at the harbor, I would just suggest that perhaps a meeting between the city, the Trinidad Civic Club, the Trinidad Rancheria, the Yurok tribe, and the Churai Ancestral Society might be a wise idea. There seems to be so much misinformation and misunderstanding out there. And if maybe we were in person, all in the same room together, some information might be given and a discussion could be made that might be useful for all of us. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Patty. Sorry, Ms. Fleshner, your screen just says Patty. So yes, Eli will definitely take your words and consider them as we try to move forward on lots of issues in general, but this one in particular. So thank you for your comments. Other comments, items from the floor? All righty then, seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required by any council member, that item is removed from the calendar and considered separately. A single opportunity for public comment on the consent is available. We didn't have any substantive changes requested by either the public or the council, so we'll consider the consent agenda intact. But at this point, is there any public comment for the consent agenda? All righty then, seeing none, bring it back to the council for a motion regarding the consent.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as
I'll
is.
second it.
First by Grover, second by Kelly. Mr. Adams, if you please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with Council Member West,
Yes.
Grover,
Yes.
Kelly,
Aye.
Tuttle,
Yes.
and Mayor Ladwig.
Aye.
All passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, all, which brings us on to our next, our first discussion action agenda item, the water plant operations update. So we do have a representative of Coleman Engineering here with us this evening. So Eli, if you want to give a little preamble, great. Otherwise, take it away, Phil.
Hey, yes, I will give a quick preamble. Phil Godman, who is working as our T3 operator, water plant operator from Coleman Engineering, and he is going to give us an update about the water plant and the operations. So I'll turn it over to Phil.
Hey, everybody. Moving forward, other than today, you'll get a progress report in writing. I'll send this one to Eli tomorrow about the plant. I don't know how in depth you want to get. We're training 2 new guys right now. One of them has accepted to take the plant over eventually. I've been training him for 2.5, 3 months now. His name's Sina. I don't know who else met him yet. He's been an operator for 5 years, and he's from the area here. That was our biggest issue, was there weren't enough operators in the area with a high enough grade to run that plant. And to take on the responsibility. He was reluctant about that until he's had the last 3 months of training over there. So we did the reports today, and he was pretty comfortable with that. So he's looking at July of, I believe June of coming on full time, but July of taking the plant over. And we still will be a fallback for him to, as a resource, to call, ask questions, continued educating him if he needed it. Just a rundown of what we've done the last few months. A couple of process changes we made were mainly the lower end of town has historically had a low to a non-detect residual in the lines. So that was an issue the state had. So we resolved that by just changing the process of the run. Instead of having shorter runs, we now have longer periods of runs. That way, the tanks used to have a turnover of 19 days to turn the whole tank over. Now they're down to 9 days. Not that it goes septic or anything, but the longer the water's in there, the less potent the chlorine is, basically, for disinfection. Cleaning from the creek to the tanks, excuse me, to the contact chambers underground, the water's cleaner, which the state had an issue of the disinfectant byproducts, carcinogenics in the water, reaching some of the MCLs. So now with changing the runtime, we're getting better residuals throughout the entire town, even residuals now. We're actually using 5 to 10% less chlorine, and with less particulates in the water, that automatically lowered all of your disinfectant byproducts there. We're implementing a lot of preventative maintenance programs, SOPs. A lot of valves out there were buried in the driveway, so we had to dig them up to gain access to get to some of the valves to perform some of the preventative maintenance on them. We got new stencils last week that Gabe went out and got for us, so we're labeling everything at the plant. So basically anybody comes in can grab an SOP that we're writing up and walk through step by step with pictures, and all the valves will be numbered or lettered, and they can kind of go through the process themselves, trying to just simplify everything so that it's anybody can do it. I mean, maybe not anybody, but most people can do it. We do have, the only issue so far right now is the ladder in the tank put off a bunch of rust in it would be the east side tank. So we're trying to figure out how to get that out of there with the cleaning crew, but trying to plan at the same time that they're going to do the tank inspection, so there's not a double cost on that. And I think that's kind of it. I'll put everything with the pictures and the data and the report together. I'll give that to Eli, and then he can send it to whoever on your board that wants it.
Thank you, Phil. Questions from the council or comments from the council for Phil? I know I want to jump in and say I'm really, really grateful for these changes. You know, the fact that you're leaning towards a situation where it's a lot easier for someone to come in with a lower grade training to still be able to read the manual and know enough to, I mean, I know you're not asking one of the counselors to run the water plant. It's not that simple, but the fact that you're leaning towards redundancy and a lot more resiliency and just the staffing of the plant is really encouraging. So I'm really grateful for that update. And I'm looking forward to spending $7 million to fix our leaky pipes. So, you know what I mean? Just the work you're doing is heading us in the right direction. So thank you for that. Counselors, any questions, comments for Phil?
No, just thanks for straightening the system out like that and being aware of that, of the environmental conditions going on. You know, obviously we needed that. So it's like you came at right at the right time. It's been, you know, a costly event for the city, but we should be good. We got a lot of infrastructure improving and updating, and you got to start with water. You know, it's got to be water comes first anywhere you live.
Thank you, David. At this point, how about any general public comments or questions for Coleman and Associates? Paula.
Yeah, at a Water Advisory Committee meeting about a year ago, there was talk about the public being invited to take a tour of the plant. And I don't think it ever happened. Can it happen?
Eli and Phil, what's your thought on, group size or availability or whatnot? What does a tour of the water plant look like?
Most of you probably know it's a very small footprint. The only thing is going down to the gallery down at the creek. It's not, we put some new stairs in today down at the very end where the gallery is, where our intake basically is. I don't know if I'd recommend people going down there. Some of the stairs are 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. It's not really meant for access down there, but the main part of it, I got no problem with it. We've given, in trying to recruit operators, I think we've 6 or 7 tours of the plant and trying to just demonstrate what the plant does. So yeah, I got no problem showing anybody.
I'm having a hard time finding Eli's face on our screen. Did we?
Oh, I'm here on this.
Oh, that's right. You're with.
Yeah, we're together.
Very short memory I have. Eli, can you just weigh in on Paula's question about folks coming in to see how you would imagine that as a possibility? Not that you have to have it all ironed out now, but just your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, my initial thoughts, since she mentioned the Water Advisory Committee, would be to get started with the Water Advisory Committee, which they're planning on having a meeting either the end of May or beginning of June. And then we can schedule tours through the Water Advisory Committee and the interested people who attend those meetings. So we can start with that.
Thank you very much for that. And other comments, questions from the general public? All right. Thank you very much, Phil, for joining us this evening and for the work that you're doing. All right, we'll move on to item number 2, discussion decision regarding second reading of ordinance 2021-02 regarding zoning ordinance regulating short-term rentals. So I, at this point, will ask our Mayor Pro Tem to take over as I recuse myself from all short-term rental agenda items, given that I am an owner. Jack, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you. We are now into the second reading of this ordinance. We've gone through it very well, and if you had a chance to look at it, they made a number of changes that we were able to see, changes and updates in blue. And about me, there's a lot of things in it that went on. We don't have to read the whole thing, but I would hope that maybe Eli would give us a quick update on what's in here, and then we can look at it. So Eli, can you give us an update on this? Or do you need to?
Okay, I'm sorry, Phil was just leaving.
Okay.
Could you ask what you're asking again?
We're on the STR, the second reading of our ordinance.
Okay.
I just didn't, I told them that I told them that we don't have to read it, but we can. We had a lot of interesting changes, and I didn't know if you wanted to point anything out before we discuss further.
Yeah, nothing special to point out. We had pointed them out at the first reading. And, the main thing is that we do have an overall cap now for STRs in the city, which is 32. Previously, we didn't have a cap. Other than that, in the residential area, we reduced by one the STR. And then in the planned development area, we increased it by one. Those were the areas that are limited, and otherwise there's the overall cap. The other changes were a little bit more minor. In addition to that, because we have not had a lottery previously, and we haven't filled some of the existing vacant spots on the short-term rentals, once the ordinance takes effect, which would be 30 days after the second reading, then after that, we will contact the people on the wait list and find out if they're still interested in having a short-term rental. And then we will do the lottery, which I'm planning on doing it what I call bingo style, where I would have like the round ball, the round cage or whatever you want to call it, put the small bingo balls in it and then rotate that and then have those numbers pulled out corresponding to whatever names are still in the running for a potential STR. Other than that, I will entertain any questions or comments people might have.
Before we go to anybody else, how about we go back to council? Anybody have any comments from the council?
Was that everybody in the same round, or was there something based on how long ago they had applied, or the time of application?
Yeah, it's going. Yeah, it had gone back to the Planning Commission after our initial meeting, and when it went back to the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission suggested that we go with the what is in the ordinance, which is the lottery process, rather than basing it on when people got on the wait list. And that in the future, in 2 years roughly, when we do have another review of the short-term rental ordinance, at that point, we will consider how the lottery has worked and whether or not we should change the format.
Okay. Anybody? Cheryl, did you have a comment? Question?
No, I've looked at this a number of times, so I'm good.
Okay. Jack, did you want to add something?
Eli, do you know offhand how many open spaces are available for the lottery at this time?
We currently have, I believe, I know we have approximately 27 licenses that are out there. So as a result, in order to get full capacity for the area that is the residential area, there would be at least 2 or 3 openings for the residential area. And then I think in one of the other areas, because there's the urban residential, which is predominantly most of the center of town. That's where there are, I believe, 16 licenses, and then we can have up to 18. So there's definitely 2 there. And then the other area, the SR, I believe that there's 1 opening there. So there's at least 3 openings, possibly 4.
Eli, can I correct you real quick just on one?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm looking at, I just pulled open my list as Councilmember Tuttle brought that up, and you're right. In the urban residential zone, there's 2 licenses available, and that would be according to the new ordinance. And in the suburban residential zone, there'll be 4. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like 6. I think it's 6, maybe 7, I think, depending on the date here. Yeah, so 7 people on the list, and I'd have to take a look at each one, but I think the majority of them are in the urban residential zone. So if there's 2 licenses available and there's 7 people on the list, that tells you what the odds are of those folks getting a license. But I currently don't have anybody in the SR zone.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, it would be the 2 licenses in the urban residential, and I thought there was one in the suburban residential, but if there isn't, then we don't have any, even though there's 4 potential there.
If there are no other comments from the council, does anybody have some public comment? Paula?
Whoops. Am I muted? Am I unmuted?
You're good.
Okay. One question is, can the council decide to override the planning commission? Because the answer to that question leads to another question I have.
Yes, yeah, the council can reconsider what the planning commission passes to us.
Okay, so the second question I have, as far as having a lottery system or a waiting list, and I made a comment, I believe, at the planning commission. To me, it doesn't make sense and it's not fair. For example, for someone to be on a list wanting an STR for 5 years and people come in after that over a period of years, it doesn't seem fair to have a lottery system. It should be by the time one submits an application. So I think the council should reconsider that.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Is there someone else have a comment that they question?
This is Mike Morgan. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Mike.
I support what Paul is saying. I know you guys have been working hard on this lottery, and I haven't looked at it or studied it, but my knee-jerk reaction is it seems really unnecessary and bizarre. And I know there's other places that do it, but I don't know. You guys have obviously done a lot of work on it, but from what Paula says and from what I'm thinking, how unfair would it be if you own property and you've been trying to wait for 3 or 4 years and you're going through a lottery system? That's just absurd. At least it could be weighted where if it's, say you got 5 in 1 year, then you do a lottery for those 5 and there's no other ones waiting, that would be really cool. So if the people that have been on for more than a year, they all get to go in order maybe, and then the lottery for 5 that you just got for the current year or something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there for you guys. I know everybody's hearts are working hard on this issue, and it's an important issue to a lot of people. So thank you, Paula, for your input.
Richard Dick Bruce.
Yes, Jack and members of the council, respectfully to Paul and to Mike, a lot of time has been put in on this issue by both the STR committee and the planning commission. And I really believe that the council should move ahead and approve the second reading. This whole thing needs to be reviewed again in 2 years. We as a city are already a couple of years behind in the 2-year review of the ordinance. And so I would respectfully say, let's take this up at the next review of the ordinance in 2 more years in terms of the lottery system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Any other comments from anyone?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes, and please tell us. Please tell us.
This is Katrin Holman.
Thank you.
This is Katrin Holman, and I wish to speak about this short rental item. And I wanted to say that I agree with what Paula and Mike said. I don't own a rental or a house, a property there. But it seems unfair. And also, I want to say that if people, if they're on a list and they know, they can see when their time is coming, how close it is, they can make plans. And if there is a lottery, they may just keep their houses empty instead of renting it to someone who would like to or benefit from a long-term rental. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If I can't see a hand, you can't just let me know. All right, I see none. I'm going to bring it back to the council. And I'm just going to ask our city manager briefly. Your lottery that you'll be putting this together with is going to be a simple lottery. Well, each person gets one. There's no weighted, it's just a straight one, whatever ball or whatever they have per person. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And the lottery system was set up, and there were no vacancies before. It just happened that within the past year we got vacancies. So it's not like, these people have been waiting and so on in the sense of that there were vacancies that were unfilled. There were none, and all of a sudden they did become available.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know at first I had reservations about it too. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, after I realized like the people that we did put in positions to address these issues, like the short-term rental committees, came up with that. So I like to, unless I have a real good reason not to, I like to go with the recommendations. I found that with all committees like that, even water advisory and all that, try to go with the recommendations when you give people responsibilities for it. So yeah, I'm all for the second reading tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl.
I think I agree with what's been said. I certainly think that, in our next round, we might be able to come up with a better solution. But for now, given the fact that we've set everyone's expectations, and the longer that we wait to approve this, the longer the folks that have been on the waiting list are going to be waiting to try to win the lottery. And so at least they were aware of this, and they know that this is the process. But I do agree that we might be able to come up with a fairer process down the road. And I know we discussed that at the last meeting. So I'm ready to, unless I'm ready to make a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance, if we're ready to do that.
I'll second that.
Before we have a vote, I will just give Jack Tuttle. Jack, did you want to add anything to this?
Listen to public comment, and I think I have what I need. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Then it sounds like we're ready. We've got a motion and a second. So, Gabe, if you'll get a count for us, please.
Yeah. So in the packet, just for the record, we'll go ahead and I'll read what I understand. We have Councilmember Grover and seconded by Kelly.
Kind of. It was she
Did I
made
get
the
that
motion.
right?
No, she made the motion and I seconded.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. So
Did you want me
Kelly.
to read? Did you want me to read from the packet then, Gabe? Is that what you're saying? Or
No, I'll go ahead and do that for you.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
heard the first and second. Now that I got that straight, I'll go ahead and read the motion as I understand it, is to waive the full reading and adopt the second reading of ordinance 2021-02 by title only, amending section 1756160626 as certified of the Trinidad zoning ordinance regulating short-term rentals. And we'll start with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Kelly.
Aye.
Tuttle.
Yes.
And Ladwig's recused. So that's the motion passes, carries 4-0. And just for the record, as I mentioned in the staff report, that normally ordinances go into effect 30 days following the second reading, but since this is something that needs to be certified by the Coastal Commission, we'll wait for their approval before it goes into effect.
Thank you, Gabe. And we're ready to move on to discussion item number 3. The second reading of the Trinidad Municipal Code relating to the election of the Planning Commission Chair. And we have Mayor Ladwig back for this.
Thank you, Jack, for taking over as always. So yes, our third item is the second reading regarding the Planning Commission and the removal of a statement limiting the number of terms or the amount of time that someone can serve as chair. So no major changes. Go ahead.
Wanted to interrupt. There is a item 3 I'm showing as the election. Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, election for planning chair. Good, very good. Thanks.
All right. So now that we have it confirmed from our city manager that we are talking about the second reading, at this point, councilors, do you have anything to add to this? Okay. Public. Go ahead, David.
No, just that this was one of the things when we talk about like making things more fair. So we were able to put something together very simply to give more people the opportunity to be in the planning commission. We always like as much participation as possible.
True that. Very true. So, and I just want to make sure, Dick, I see that your hand is up in the Zoom world. I just want to make sure that that isn't another hand up for this item. So please let me know. Any public comment regarding the second reading of the ordinance governing the makeup of the Planning Commission? All right. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for a motion.
I'll make that motion that we update the election of the planning commission chair.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a first from Mr. Grover, second from Mr. West. Mr. Adams.
I'll finish by reading the motion in full, which is what I expect to be the intent here, is to motion by Councilmember Grover, seconded by West, to waive the full reading and adopt the second reading of ordinance 2022-01 by title only, amending section 220070 of the Trinidad Municipal Code relating to the election of the Planning Commission chair. We'll start with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Kelly.
Aye.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Mayor Ladwig.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. The ordinance will become effective on the 31st day following approval. So that'll be June 10th, 2022.
Thank you very much. And again, like Dave said, that's a very nice step towards both encouraging more involvement and allowing those who wish to remain involved to do so. So thank you for that. Moving on to item number 4, updated continued discussion regarding returning to live city council and planning commission meetings. Gabe and or Eli, if you could please give us an update on what we have.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Eli, unless you have anything you want to add at the beginning here.
No, I think that would be fine. I know we've been talking about this, and Gabe has a few things lined up, so I'll let him explain what we're going to be doing in order to move forward with getting live meetings and having the ability for people to Zoom in also. So I'll turn it to Gabe.
Thanks, Eli. I'll go ahead and just, kind of point your attention to the staff report. I put a little effort into, the pre-meeting setup for these so I can have my thoughts organized. But at the regular meeting on April 12th, staff presented council with several examples of how other cities and local agencies are implementing the hybrid meeting experiment. And then we outlined some next steps needed to reach the goal of testing a system in June, which is still our goal. The first primary goal was to lay the groundwork and start testing the systems. And one of the folks who was going to help me with that, his name is Joey Blaine. He's with McKinleyville Community Services District. He he has a system that is relatively inexpensive, works pretty well, and only takes 2 people to implement. So short of that, working with Access Humboldt representatives who are going to help us kind of take this system to the next level of just making a nice polished, finished product that we can live with for a while. Mr. Blaine is expected to actually help me with that tomorrow. We're going to do a test run in the town hall, but even before we begin, the first thing we needed to do is lay out a really nice wireless internet system in this facility, which we have not had. And I'm pleased to report that a guy named Cabe Miller, who is I believe he's the owner of Cornerstone Computers, is going to be working with us on that. I guess it's May 11th. That's tomorrow. So we're making progress, getting a system up and running that we can test, and hopefully with the purchase of a few new pieces of equipment, which I've listed in the staff report, a mounted pull-down low-profile projector screen for the town hall, a modern projector, which has some really nice resolution capabilities in well-lit and dark settings, unlike our old 1990s projector, which seemed to not really do very well in light settings, and a webcam and accessories that we need to capture the active speaker in the room. So as of the April 12th meeting, we researched some of our neighboring agencies, and I presented some examples, some links to their meetings, just to see kind of where everyone was at. And, this item here tonight was just to be mainly presentation only, to give you an update. But also I wanted to just check and see, maybe we can share some information, and you can share it with me if you had any experiences in the last month with any of your other meetings, whether it be HCOG or RCEA or REDAC or even the Coastal National Monument. If anyone has experienced, not the Coastal National Monument, but the other agencies who hold public meetings, if there was anything that you noticed that, was a success in their settings that you could share with us. But other than that, that was my report. And also in the packet, I included those links to the old meetings that I had researched from March, but I guess they could be outdated because everybody's moving pretty quickly in a different direction. But that's all I have. If anybody has any questions for me, we're still looking for a June unveiling of our first test. And that's our target, as long as everything works and we have all the equipment that we need. That's been our goal, and we're sticking to it.
Thank you for that update and for the research being done. Dave, looks like your hand was.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank him for the time too. And I personally haven't experienced a hybrid meeting yet, and I want to. And might stick around another month if I could go to town hall, because I do like the action. I like the spontaneity of it. And I think to integrate one of these newer updated systems is just going to be a regular component in every city, everywhere. So you got to stick with it. Everything else is updating here. We got to update the tech too.
Cheryl?
I don't have any best practices to share, Gabe. Sorry about that. I haven't attended any meetings like that are hybrid, but I believe we're going to schedule the Water Advisory Committee for early June. So if anything's ready to test, we could be a test case for you. Let me know.
Okay, perfect.
Other council thoughts? Jack, I know you've been attending county stuff. Are they doing hybrid right now?
They're still talking about it, so it's we should be doing that. They're doing all the same thing. They want to make sure it's going to work right, that we're really prepared. And that's one of the things that I want to stress is it would be great to be back in person in a hybrid situation, and I would not want it any other way, especially with COVID coming up again as an issue. So let's just make sure that I just want to make sure Gabe knows I'm comfortable with having it done if we're ready. But if we're not ready, I don't want to push. I want to make sure it's going to work. My other question is that on the agenda, it says that we're getting an update, continued discussion, but it also says a continued discussion decision on a couple of places. So I just want to make sure if we're supposed to make any kinds of decisions, or is this just samples from other places? I couldn't decide. We're only going to be doing you're only giving a discussion today, right?
Yeah, the title is just in general continued discussion decision, but I kind of left that open instead of just a presentation or an update, just in case there was, some new information brought forward and you guys wanted to give us any new direction. The one thing I guess as we just talked for a second there, the one thing I noticed that we're missing is any kind of, policy, or just sort of like guidance, let's call it, as far as, especially with looking at how COVID numbers are kind of spiking here and there. And I think Ms. Sherry Provolt brought up at the last meeting, which was also something that I had kind of hinted on in our staff report, that some of these agencies, our neighboring agencies, are actually putting together, some guidance, some rules as far as attendance. I think MCSD puts a disclaimer on their agendas that says, disruption in some technology won't forfeit or stop the meeting from moving forward. We do have a second meeting in May coming up, I believe. I think that's the intention, to kind of tap into the budget a little bit more, build on the agenda item that is coming before you. I think the next one or the one after tonight. So I was thinking too that might be some direction that we might need to formalize, or at least, just let me know that that's something we want to, maybe refine a little bit with any kind of guidance that you might want, whether masks are required or we're just going to have a free fall. It doesn't make a difference to me, but I just wanted to throw that out there too tonight to see if maybe I can take a first stab at putting some meeting disclosures, together before the next agenda. And I can do that based on, continued research on other agencies and best practices.
Yeah, my response to that, Gabe, is the meetings that I'm attending that are hybrid, those who are in person, it's really more of a guideline, right? So it's not a requirement. It's an agreed upon set of conditions that people want to meet. And so I think that's what I would encourage the city council, staff, and general public, is to approach it from a set of guidelines that this want to meet in, is kind of how you think about it in terms of, health and safety. And so I would encourage us to stay away from mandates and requirements, and instead ask people who are in attendance to consider the safety and health of others around and the comfort of others around and their choices. And an example would be simply don't come to a meeting in person if you're sick. And I just go back to my teaching days and my days on the council when people were sneezing like crazy all over the meeting. And that next week, everyone went home with the flu. And so I think we just want to take that as an example and move forward, that as long as the hybrid is working, as long as we're able to participate from either in person or from our homes, that the experience is the one that gets us the most input, the most engagement from the community and from the staff and from the council. So I've seen if I can get Humboldt Transit Authority, because I believe they have some guidelines like that already put together, so we don't have to start from scratch. But I encourage other councilors, if you're in any other board meetings or anything where there's anything in writing that we can provide to our city staff to develop these guidelines, I think that'll other community or other comments rather from at this point, council or community.
Mayor, this is Mike Morgan. I have an extensive comment.
Go
and
ahead.
I'll take the far other side more. I do appreciate what you guys are trying to do here. I think long term, it's a wonderful thing to add. We've talked about doing it for years, and it's nice that there could possibly be a silver lining in such a horrendous experience that we've all endured. I'll just remind, and I echo what you said, Mayor, the way to handle this is really simple. I mean, we've been doing it for 2 years. We stayed open during the pandemic per the state guidance and the federal guidance and the county guidance, and we have had no issues. And it's exactly what you said, Mayor. You encourage and you meet people where they are. If we have a guest that wants to wear a mask, then, we accommodate them, but social distancing works. We've found that out. Masks don't really work. There's all a new study out, 35 countries and millions of people. So those are nice mental things, but there's no science behind it. The peer-reviewed study that I'll send along explains it. So really, it says, yeah, if you're sick, don't come to the meeting. And you can also, just like I do now, submit your comments, and they'll get put in eventually. And we can deal with that situation if it comes up. We shouldn't be assuming that there's going to be a spike. That's what got the city in trouble with us already. That's not the right way to think about this. You deal with situations when they happen. So right now, I'm hearing, what do we do? How do we set this up? You listen to the state government. You read AB 361. It's very clear. I just read it. I've submitted my letter. It deals with disruptions. At last month's council meeting, Tyler and I were locked out. We could not participate. I assume this was not intentional, and others were similarly unable to attend online. Per Assembly Bill 361, 2021, the meeting should have been stopped until this was corrected. According to the code, additionally, where there is a disruption in the public broadcast of the call-in or internet-based meeting service, the legislative body must cease and take no further action on agenda items until public access is restored. So that takes care of the access part. If we're meeting in person, I don't think it's going to apply. However, I think if you read AB 361 and you go by that now, we should be meeting in person, because the findings that the lawyer has made back in, I'm assuming, September, are not in effect now. Findings are misleading and not adequate, particularly number 2. This is the findings from, I'm assuming, the lawyer. While the California legislature did vote against Republican-led efforts to end the governor's 2-year-long state of emergency last month, that is but a primary requirement. So again, going to last month's meeting, we had an issue where someone who might be out of town could call in. No, you can't do that. It's if there's a state of emergency, that's when we do these things. It's not for convenience of council members or people who are afraid of COVID. So we do have a state of emergency still, 2 years running. Then the next criteria are not being met now. And we need to look at that. And the attorney should weigh in on that. They're misleading. Okay, the way the attorney wrote them is not correct. When a legislative body of a local agency holds a meeting during a declared state of emergency, as that term is defined, when state or local health officials, not Gabe, not the mayor, not Jack West, not the lawyer, when state or local health officials have imposed or recommend measures to promote social distancing during the state of emergency, held for the purpose of determining by emergency majority vote whether meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees, not a perceived risk in the future, an imminent risk that day. All right. And during a proclaimed state of emergency, when the legislative body has determined that meeting in person would present an imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees. It's not that they passed something a year ago. It's
Excuse me, Mike. I just want to say, please wrap your comments up in 1 more minute. Thank you.
I didn't need the interruption. I was finished, but thank you.
Any further comments, Mike?
Like I said, I didn't need the interruption. I was finished. Thank you.
All right. Other comments regarding this agenda item? All right, Gabe, again, thank you for your work on this. As others have offered, if you need someone to log in for a test, I'm out of the area this week, but I'm happy to be in-person test, whichever you need. So thank you for that update. And we will move on to our next item, which is item number, let's see.
Five.
Yes, thank you. Item number 5, discussion decision regarding appointment to fill the vacancy on the short-term rental advisory committee. Again, I ask Mayor Pro Tem Jack to take over, as I will recuse myself.
We are going to be looking at filling vacancy that's been open for a while on the short-term rental. We did have a gentleman come in from out of town, and his name's Daniel Henry. He pulled his name after he heard what we had said. He agreed to pretty much agreed. And so we have two people who have applied, Mike Morgan and Jacques Beaupre. I will ask Eli if he has any information he'd like to let us know about. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, so it's in the packet. We have what we had received previously from Mike is in the packet, the one page, and also a one page from Jacques Beaupre, which was received as well. And then, if there's any questions or comments anyone might have, just feel free to, let me know.
Let's start with the council. Any of the council members have a question or comment? I'm seeing none. I will go out to the general public. Does anybody have a comment? Patty? Patty, I look to your hand up. If you can, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank
There you
you. All right.
Thank you.
Both Mr. Mike Morgan and Mr. Jacques Beaupre are very, very fine gentlemen, and we're lucky to have both of them in their community. I think, given Mr. Morgan's extensive experience with both the City Council and the Planning Commission, despite some of the recent disagreements from the last couple of years, maybe bringing everybody under the same tent might be a really, really positive way forward for some of the problems we've had. And Mike Morgan has been an excellent leader in the past, and maybe we all tamp down the drama a little bit. We could get back to being conciliatory and wonderful. I think he'd make an excellent person on this committee, and actually so would Mr. Beaupre, but he's not as experienced as Mr. Morgan. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Dick, you still have your hand up. Would you like to make a comment? Okay, I will. Is anyone else that has any comments?
Jack, this is Mike Morgan.
Go ahead.
So, I'm sorry, it wasn't asked for me to read anything or speak, but that's fine. I did file a formal letter in addition to what I filed back in February, and it is included in the public comment section along with a lot of my other public comments. That's available online and has been available today, and that I sent to the city manager and that I sent to each of the council members. So you guys all have a copy of this, and I'll just read it in really quickly for the record. I have no problems with Mr. Beaupre. If he really wants to do this, I'm happy to step aside and let him do it, as I'm running for council, and that would probably confuse things anyway. So I think it'd be great if we have another person. However, I will read my letter since I took the time to write it. Honorable City of Trinidad Councilman, the STRAC position volunteer city general public. At last month's city council meeting, my city filed February 28, 2022, notice of interest in volunteering for this position was excluded from discussion agenda item 7. Upon city clerk confirmation during the discussion, I should not have only been included, I probably should have been appointed. Given STRAC Chairman Richard Bruce's emailed concerns, committee member concerns, and community support, I was the only volunteer residing in the city who has not and does not own or operate a short-term rental STR business. I've lived in Trinidad, California for 17 years in 4 different properties and with many different types of neighbors and properties with different uses: owner-occupied, residential, long-term rental, vacation, etc. It was and easy to get along with all sorts of these situations when we remember our common love for Trinidad, when we speak together from the heart, and when we respect each other's right to lawfully use our properties. Recently, my successful community work to rescind 3 city resolutions totaling 4% of tax increases the city required short-term rental guests and hotel guests to pay speaks to my knowledge, impartiality, and my commitment to truth and justice and fairness. My advocacy for those being unfairly taxed without representation, in this case guests, is well known. In city litigation filings and reports, I exposed staff's misleading and fraudulent definitions of what an STR is. I clarified what guest record information businesses are required to retain, for how long, and most importantly, that the city must obtain a judicial warrant to request and receive each guest record for information beyond guest tax amount collected. Elected city councilman 2008 to 2020, no, it's not. 2008 to 2012, I worked through introducing and developing our accessory dwelling unit and vacation dwelling items with our community and our city planning department. Previous to my election, I served on our city planning department as commission chairman. I volunteered for planning to update the general plan, and I had the, excuse me? May I continue? May I continue?
Go ahead, Mike. I'm hearing.
So-
Somebody's not muted.
Yeah, somebody's not muted.
Yeah,
iPhone.
Yeah,
I only have one more paragraph and I'll let you guys go.
yeah, go ahead.
I volunteered for planning to update the general plan, and I had the intention of helping it pass through the council during my term. Sadly, we're still waiting on that update. My community service record is well known. As always, I may not be an expert, but I am willing to learn, listen, and respectfully include all viewpoints. Additionally, I look to include better representation of our STR guests, which have been otherwise minimized or taken for granted in the past. Thank you for your reconsideration.
I have a question for Mr. Morgan.
Oh, go ahead,
So,
David.
do you want to do this, or would you rather just wait and try to go for the council later? Because I was gonna, obviously you want to get involved, so I was going to nominate you. But not if you're gonna
I would-
run for council.
I would love to do this position. I think I can bring a lot to it. I'm not offended, but I'm not surprised either that they've gone out and gotten another person to run against me. I feel like it would be a good opportunity for us all to start working together and turn the page on what's been going on in the past. So I'll leave my letter of interest in, and I appreciate the nomination.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that you spoke up, because we should have had you speak up earlier. And also, is Jacques Beaupre here? I'm not sure. All right. So Jacques has a letter in the that you've all probably already seen, and I guess what I will do is just briefly read it so you know what it is. It says, I talked to here. I talked to Dick Bruce yesterday for a few minutes. He asked if I would consider helping on the STR committee, and he says, here I am doing that. I'm here to volunteer on the STR commission. I think I can be a reasonable voice representing the Trinidad community. I now have a few years of experience living next to STRs, and I've seen big changes in the way STRs are managed in a positive way. Although the last 2 years are an anomaly and actual real rental history, maybe the good STR behavior is a permanent trend. More improvements can be made without stepping on too many toes, I think. And so that's Jacques Beaupre. So
And Dick Bruce had put his hand up.
yes, I'm going to go. I'll get to him right away. So I just wanted to make sure I read that. Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, no disrespect to Mike. I think it's important that the citizen representative on the committee not have any connection to the lodging industry whatsoever, whether it's an STR owner or a hotel owner. It's important to have balanced view coming in terms of how normal citizens, not business people in town, but normal citizens view the issues associated with STRs, that live with STRs in their neighborhoods, and that can provide input, not from a business standpoint or from a lodging standpoint, but just from a normal resident that lives in town. I do appreciate what Mike said in terms of he obviously would like to help serve on the committee. And if we didn't have another city resident not associated with the lodging industry, I'd say, yeah, let's go ahead and appoint Mike. We do have a city resident who has attended STR committee meetings, who has lived in the neighborhood where there's been STRs and has experience living with that. And so my recommendation would be to go with Jacques. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a community comment? Paula?
I think business people are as normal as anybody else. And I think it's a good idea to have Mike on the short-term rental committee. He doesn't have a short-term rental. He has a hotel, which is different. And speaking of his vast experience, I don't see a problem that he's a businessman.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else like to make a comment?
I would like to just respond.
Jack? Oh,
And before Mike says anything, there's somebody who we wish you could mute because we're having trouble hearing. So Mike, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to the chairman. I do live, and I have lived in Trinidad for these 17 years. I don't just operate a business here, and I've had separate residents from the business. So that's like double the experience is the way to look at it. Not that I'm somehow skewed towards STRs. If anything, they'd be, I support them, of course, because I support tourism and sharing our town. But if anything, they're a competition to my business. So I understand your point. I just disagree with it. And I think that since we've had in the past, Kathleen and Dorothy, and clearly the Friends of Trinidad and all those people serving in that position, well, they're clearly against STRs. And I can understand we want a fair and balanced thing. And that's what I think I can offer. I'm not sure if Beaupre is for or against them or what his experience is, but I have lived with them around me, and I have them around me now the entire time I've been here at each of my properties. So again, I'll keep my desire to be on the board. I know I can help out. I'd like to help out, and I look forward to serving if the council will have me.
Thank you. Is any? I think we've gotten through the community. I'd like to bring it back to the council. Do we have any more?
Jack,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yes, this is Kathleen Holman again, and I just want to add that the short-term rentals don't only affect residential properties, they also affect businesses and also this hotel. So I feel like Mike would bring just another voice from another group to the table, and I recommend that you appoint Mike to this short-term rental committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now this will be, I'll bring it back to the council. Cheryl, did you have something you wanted to add? I noticed, Cheryl, you pulled yourself off mute, so I wondered if you wanted to make any comment.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I was reading the, I just briefly was pulled up the short-term rental resolution. And so I guess looking at that, we do have one planning commissioner, 2 members of the public who are not affiliated with an STR, and 2 members of the public who are either STR owners or property managers. And the person who left was a community member who was not affiliated with an STR. Mr. Morgan isn't either. He's got a very strong background. I think his experience and the Planning Commission, City Council, et cetera, is all very valuable. His business expertise would be absolutely incredible in a number of different areas. My hesitation here, in all honesty, and I appreciate Mr. Morgan's honesty, that his intent to run for city council. And I'd really like to get somebody on the short-term rental committee who can be on the committee and for the longer term. And a city council person can't be on the short-term rental committee. So, and I am familiar with Jacques. He joined several of the planning commission meetings and provided some also public comment on several occasions. I do think he is interested in this topic, and I think he is very much at arm's length from the STR business, or even the lodging industry, as Mr. Bruce pointed out. So I guess I would be inclined, based on what we need for this specific position at this time, to make a motion to nominate Jacques Beaupre, excuse me, for the STR committee.
We have Dave or Jack, would you like to make a second on that? I'm not hearing a second, so Dave,
Okay.
do you want to say anything? You want to make a second? All right. Well, it looks like we're not getting a second, so we'll bring it back to the council. And
Yeah, I was gonna nominate Mike Morgan for the position, and I don't know. I probably won't be here, so I kind of feel like, I still have to make decisions while I am here, even though my term here might be short-lived. But I did like his argument, and not really an argument, but his position. I agreed with that, and the difference between a business and a short-term rental. So I'm going to nominate him. See if we get a second.
we have a second for Mike Morgan.
I have all second. Yes.
We have a first and a second. So Gabe, can you take account, please?
Yeah, so let's start with the motion. I've got Grover made the motion to nominate Mike Morgan to the STR committee advisory committee. And that would be for the resident position. And seconded by Councilmember Tuttle. So with that, we'll go with a vote starting with, let's see, Councilmember West.
No.
No. West. And how about Councilmember Kelly?
I am going to vote nay for the reasons I mentioned, but again, I mean, no disrespect.
And Grover?
Aye.
Tuttle?
Yes.
So the motion does not pass with a vote of 2 no, West and Kelly, and 2 yes, Grover and Tuttle. So we're back to square one.
I'm going to give I did not get a chance to say what my reasons were since we ran into nominations right away, but I'm going to go with the same thing that Richard Bruce said, is that when we put this together, we really wanted to have, I feel, a city representative, people who are part of the community and lived in homes in the community. And we wanted to have 2 people in that were able to bring community information in. And I feel that Mike has a business that's related very strongly to the STRs. And I don't think that represents what I see as the city general public representative. So I would like to, that's why I turned it down. I really feel like I want someone who is a member of the regular community to bring their voice and who's a homeowner in the area. So that's why I am voting no to this. So we can bring it back to the council again, and we can begin the discussions again. I want to talk to Eli. In a case like this, what's sort of the direction we need to take as a council?
Well, at this point, the first nomination was turned down because it was a 2-2 tie. So if you want to consider Cheryl Kelly's motion, and if there's a second, and then if there's a vote, then you see what happens there. Otherwise, then we will continue in the future searching for someone who would hopefully be passed by the council.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Point of order. Eli, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're actually able to appoint a position as well. It doesn't have to go to the council for this process. Did I read that correctly?
I don't think so, not with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think so. But let me just make it easier on you, because clearly Jack has a bias against me, and I do appreciate Councilman Kelly's remarks. I obviously don't want to cause a problem, and I think it's more important that we have a person in this position and we work out our grievances with each other, a la Jack. There's no reason for him to vote no, to not include me. It's reprehensible to me and offensive. So let me withdraw and allow you guys to go ahead and put Mr. Beaupre in, just to make sure that we have somebody in the position, which is more important to me than doing. So I withdraw, and please go ahead and nominate Mr. Beaupre. Thank you all for your support.
Okay.
The ones that support.
Dave, go ahead.
I was gonna go ahead and second Cheryl's nomination for Mr. Beaupre because, yeah, my whole thing, your reasoning too was valid to me too, Jack.
Thank you. Dave,
I
let's get this
understand that,
started.
yeah, that you've been on that a while, and I wasn't really looking at it like from that perspective of somebody who maybe works out of town then comes home is a little different than somebody who has a business here. So maybe the ordinance, or maybe it does get reviewed too. Everything gets reviewed, so maybe it could be more refined so that that's more clear. And plus, there was mention of putting somebody in the position that's going to stay there for a while, for a couple of years. So that's my reason for
Thank you.
moving forward with this.
Let's go to Gabe. Let's get a count.
Okay, so round two, we've got Councilmember Kelly made the original motion to nominate Mr. Jack Beaupre to the STR Advisory Committee resident position, and seconded by Councilmember Grover. How about we start with Councilmember West?
Yes.
Grover,
Yes.
Kelly,
Aye.
Tuttle,
Yes.
4 yeses. Mayor Ladwig recused. That is a passing unanimously.
Can I just quickly thank both of the applicants and for their enthusiasm and their willingness, and Mr. Morgan especially, willingness to volunteer and to, based on kind of the deadlock, to opt out. And hopefully there'll be a way for him to serve with and leverage his expertise in the future.
Great. Thank you all. We're going to move on to the number 6. And this is a presentation update regarding the budget status and upcoming budget preparation timeline. And Mayor Ladwig is back with us again.
Thank you very much, Jack West, or Jack W, for continuing the meeting in my absence. So now it's time for us to start to wrap our brains around a very, very important topic, which is our annual budget. And just to remind everybody, what has been working, in my opinion anyway, has been working for the last 6 or 7 years or 5 or 6 years rather, is using our budget as a framework to implement our city goals. And so if I could just ask folks in all of these budget discussions, when we're looking at the budget, also consider the goals that the city has been moving towards. And if you do have other goals in mind for the city, the budget is one way for us to become aware of those goals. So just that's the framework that I'd like folks to use in our budget discussions. And we will likely have a second meeting in May, if not 2 in June, to get our budget approved. But anyway, at this, I would like to turn it over to Gabe and Eli, who can start us thinking about our budget for fiscal year 22-23.
Hey, I'll just start off for a minute or two and then turn it over to Gabe, who's done quite a bit of work and has put together this introduction for us today. So basically, as the mayor was saying, Steve, that the budget is very important for the city. It's it's what allows us to provide the services that the city needs. And we need a balanced budget in order to meet what revenue comes into the city. And as a result, we have a few issues that are coming up this year that need to be addressed. But at the same time, we've been fortunate enough to get grant funding, which helps shift the burden from the general fund and the enterprise fund in order to allow us to get some of these projects done, such as the current stormwater project and the upcoming water projects. Otherwise, we have lost some revenue from the cell towers and we'll be losing more. And then the other revenue was as far as the STRs, we have fortunately, the businesses have started picking up again. So hopefully we'll be able to bounce back from where we to what we normally would be with the STRs. And then the third item is dealing with as far as our projections and the possibility of the harbor area going into fee to trust, which would mean that we would lose that revenue too. So we have to be conscientious of all of these items. So I will turn it over to Gabe. And I also noticed that Becky Price Hall, our grants administrator, is present. So she could weigh in if there are any questions beyond what Gabe is going to be presenting. So I'll turn it to Gabe.
Thank you, Eli. So I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm going to bounce around a little bit. I'm going to use some of the documents that I've created, hopefully to turn a bunch of numbers into words. Like Mr. Mayor Ladwig said, I like looking at the budget in terms of goals. There's numbers behind these goals. The budget that the city utilizes is very complex. There's general fund revenues, sales taxes, property taxes. Some of the it's not special revenue, basically. It's not restricted revenue comes into the city. The city uses it to pay for general services. There's what they call proprietary funds. That's our water fund and our cemetery fund. The water fund is very reserved, very restricted. Those funds that fund pretty much stands on its own. And then we have our grants, which make up a tremendous portion of the city's budget, sometimes to the tune of, well, I don't even want to get into it too much tonight, but just as a bird's eye view, our general fund budget revenues and expenditures are to the tune of anywhere between $650,000 to $850,000. But in any one given grant year, we could see 2.5, and in the future, we might see up to $7 million in grants flowing through the city. And that has a pretty major impact on our operations here. So with that said, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me see if I can do this without screwing things up here. Am I allowed to do that? Share. Maybe not. Let's see. Can I share? My new computer here is being very protective of what I share. So I may not be able to do this, but I will try here for a second. Maps, general, privacy. No, I'm going to have to roll on right now and come back to this in a few minutes. So maybe I'll just call your attention for anybody that's got two screens to the packet. There's a page I put in for reference, and it is a staff report from the approval of the budget back in June of 2021 for the upcoming budget that we are currently operating in. And in that staff report, and also included in our budget, there's a list of goals and priorities. And those goals and priorities were basically kind of our agreement as a council, as a city, and in the community of things we were really going to focus on with the upcoming budget. And I like to look back and harken back on those priorities throughout the year, and especially as we kind of embark on the next fiscal year, to kind of see where we're at, what we've accomplished, maybe even what our failures are, and also recognize why we've either got diverted or we kind of lost track of some of our priorities. But for right now, some of those priorities, I'll just read a few of them off. Starting with, recognizing staffing through the pandemic and adapting to challenges. Well, that was something that I think at that time were really conscious of, how much the 2020, 2019 years and the pandemic really shifted our responsibilities. But then, as we know, mid-year and actually even starting in July of this past year, after the budget was approved, we started losing staff members. So that was one of our pivot points. We utilized reserves established from prior fiscal years to hire part-time employees that support existing staff and accomplish back burner tasks. Well, we did that. We hired Anton, we hired Jennifer, and we've also managed to hire, in lieu of losing some of our key employees of the water plant, we've hired some part-time public works employees to kind of keep towing the line, so to speak. Maintaining current law enforcement coverage and vital government services, I believe we've done that. We did lose some law enforcement opportunity, however, this past year due to Humboldt County Sheriff's Office staffing shortages. That is not something that's our fault. It was just something that was, and we had to adapt. So we lost our dedicated deputy, and we've currently have 24/7 coverage with the county sheriff's department. Number 4 was educate and enforce new laws passed to discourage overnight parking, camping, etc. I believe some of those ordinances, I believe Mayor Ladwig mentioned it at one of the last meetings, and maybe it was the April meeting, as his future agenda items, is like, hey, where are we at with these? So for the no parking ordinances that we were discussing. And I know Eli gave a brief update as far as where we were at with those Coastal Commission regulations and reviews, but that was number 4 on our priorities and goals list. Number 5 was to monitor, educate, and pivot with the challenges faced by the drought season ahead. Well, we've been working on that tirelessly. And the city's commitment with resources, financial resources, working with Pacific Watershed Associates, working with our city engineers, I think has been said. I think it stands alone right there. And I think there's more information to come as soon as our Water Advisory Committee kind of reopens that can of worms here and rediscovers what their purpose is and the grants that we've achieved here in the recent months, moving ahead into the next coming year. So number 5, I believe, was a success. Number 6, provide support to the Water Advisory Committee charged with developing ideas and investigating solutions for reliable drinking water source. Yeah, I think we've done that. We provided support to the Water Advisory Committee at the beginning of the year, and although they've taken a little bit of a break, they're about ready to get going again. Update the water rate structure. Number 7, we haven't done that yet. But one of the main reasons why we haven't done that is because we have had to completely rethink our water department in terms of staffing. So that being said, it makes no sense to really think about a water rate structure when you are in the middle of essentially chaos financially. So that's something that I believe we're turning the corner on, as you heard from Phil Godman tonight, giving us an update on where he's at with hiring. So I'm hoping we'll hear more about that in this upcoming budget year as we dig down into the numbers. Number 8, maintaining and upkeep of public buildings, parks, and property. Well, as far as the public buildings go, without a public works director, without that strong project management lead in the city, we haven't really been able to get those projects off the ground this year, to no fault of our own, but we're working on it. We're working on getting our public works department back in full confidence mode so they can start taking on some projects like this. Parks, let's just say parks and property, that's trails. That's another conversation. Number 9, supporting the community groups that enrich community for locals and visitors as they emerge from the pandemic hibernation. Well, they're just now starting to emerge. This was sort of a late year emergence of these community groups. And one of the things that we do to support the community groups, just because it's number 9 on the list doesn't mean it's lower in the priorities, but one of the things that we do is to dole out some of our occupancy taxes. We had an agenda item slated for this meeting to start doling out those taxes, as one of our residents, Patty Fleshner, has reminded us of last month, and you'll be seeing that agenda item coming probably at the second meeting in May or even early June. So we're moving forward in that direction. Continue promoting an inclusive dialogue with tribal governments and finalize the government-to-government policy to facilitate consultation on important topics of mutual concern. I can't necessarily speak to that. I don't participate in those meetings. But I believe that the city has been doing whatever it can possible to facilitate those discussions and to hopefully open the doors to some projects of mutual benefit, such as our trails, making investments in our trail systems with the monies that we've set aside in partnership with these tribal governments and consultations. So, I guess that's an ongoing project. It's not necessarily something we can change overnight, but I think there's been significant investments in keeping the lines of communication open. The last two, to oversee and recover from the stormwater phase construction, well, we're right there. So a year ago now, when we were talking about this, we, of course, anticipated construction to be done in the winter. And I say winter, I mean like October, November, maybe even December, but here we are late into the late spring, early summer, finishing this off. But that was a priority and a goal that we wanted to achieve. And here we are today in the final phases of this project, which has been almost a 15-year journey. And finally, continue grant programs that will help cities satisfy several elements of the general plan update. I believe there's several of those grants currently in motion, and I can't say when the general plan will be finalized and updated, but it is an ongoing, continuing project. So those were our 12 main priorities and goals. I really wanted to share the screen with you, but for a little presentation, but my computer's not cooperating and I can't necessarily do troubleshooting on the fly. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of continue to say that we've achieved, let me pull something open so I can see it. In this slide presentation I was going to show you, I guess I had a few things to just kind of touch on. So some of the highlights, let's talk about some of these highlights. I'll just reiterate a few of the things we just talked about as our goals and priorities. We increased staffing for the general fund. We increased staffing to support these committees and improve communication and services provided by the city. Anton's been a great addition to the city, I believe. He's offered me the first time in my opportunity to be able to work behind the scenes and digging beneath the surface of issues, as opposed to just, kind of handling things and just pushing them along without, giving them full attention. Jennifer Hakinen, she also, a lot of you are familiar with Jennifer. She's handling the STR licensing like a champ this year. And she really just has been a great addition to the city amongst many other hats that she's wearing as well. So those two folks have been a great investment in the city. We also invested in technology. We've got we made some significant improvements in our technology to hopefully enhance our digital communications with the community. We've starting to rebuild our public works department, and we're doing hopefully a continued support of the library chamber in the land trust. As far as public safety goes, we've had a contract this year for one full-time deputy. We did not get what we were kind of hoping for last year, which was a dedicated deputy and a half-time deputy, but hopefully that'll change this year. If people want to join the law enforcement community and get trained and come back to work and work for the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department, maybe we'll get lucky, but didn't seem to be something we really had a lot to say in this past year, although Councilmember Kelly brought up a few times some other creative ways that we can provide some public safety opportunities to this city. And I believe City Manager Eli and I are, still kicking the tires on that. Hopefully something will come to the surface here, possibly in one of our next phases of our budget discussions. The COPS fund had paid pretty much for our entire deputy contract. So that was a plus, is that the city didn't have to dip into its general fund necessarily. It had some of those monies to allocate to other projects. Parks, Public Works, we've separated temporarily the water treatment from the distribution as part of this restructuring and having this interim contract with Coleman Engineering. The Public Works Department had felt a separation from the treatment plant, and our guys, our main guy, Kyle Shipman, who most of you know, he has been working and been sort of responsible for the water distribution system, or at least overseeing the distribution system, as Coleman Engineering is focused primarily on the plant. I think that will change. At least I hope it changes when we transition away from the engineering firm and onto our new employees. We've hired 3 part-time employees after Ryan DeSmet left, and we ended up with a contract engineering firm running the treatment plant. We were down to just Kyle. And since then, we've hired 3 part-time employees to assist Kyle. And that's been great. There's been a guy named Bob Cavers, who I listed here as a success for the city. He comes with him a great lineage and history of mechanical repair and small engine maintenance. And he has taken one of our city trucks and brought it back from the dead. It looks brand new. And we didn't have to pay a fortune to do that. Bob is a huge asset for the city. I heard he also brought back several of our chainsaws from the dead. So having him has been just a tremendous opportunity for the city. Bob should be recognized for that. Let's see. We still have money remaining in the Civic Club room update reserve that has been allocated now for 2 years straight. There's still money remaining in our Trails Improvement Fund. I think we're up to 20,000, maybe 30,000 after this next upcoming year. And let's see. And we also have managed to apply for a successful grant application to the state to refurbish our tennis court surface. That project will come up here this year. And we're still waiting for some information on when we can get started on that. A couple things here. I'll just mention the water fund, some of the highlights. We've maintained our license plan operation following the resignation of Ryan DeSmet in September, which has been, I guess it was a struggle to do the recruiting, but we've been lucky enough to have a licensed operator. We've continued our Luff and Holtz Creek flow monitoring and drought monitoring processes. We've updated our policies, as Phil was mentioning today, for our operations plan, and also to guide the city during future water shortages and emergencies. We have had provided technical and administrative support to the Water Advisory Committee, and we budgeted for valve replacements last year that were utilized in conjunction with the Stormwater project. So we did have some foresight, and we were pulling these projects off one at a time in the middle of everything that's been kind of going on, and just demanding that our attention be distracted. We pulled off a big project here too with the downtown connectivity project, as that occurred last summer. If all these new sidewalks, it's been a pretty busy year for construction. I consider that a huge success for our streets and roads and investments in accessibility. And there's also remaining reserves that are set aside for future road improvements that we have not spent. Grants, that's a monster conversation in and of itself. I mean, just considering the $5 million, or hopefully I'm in the ballpark on that one, up to $5 or $6 million worth of improvements to our system currently as it is that are coming up. I was talking to Becky and Steve Allen, our engineer, about this project, and we were talking about how the Stormwater project was a several $million-dollar project that took 15 years. Well, we're talking about a project that is beyond the amount of money that we spent on the Stormwater project, and we're expected to get this stuff done within the next couple of years. We're not talking about a 15-year journey. We're talking about spending this money in the next few years. So that is going to be something that is going to take great effort to complete in the next few years. And it's also going to be reflected when we discuss staffing at our next meeting. Let's see. Budget misses, rate analysis. I kind of touched on why we haven't done that yet for the water fund, but that's going to be something we carry forward into the next year. Also, we've had a challenging labor market, which required hiring an interim engineering firm to run this treatment plant at a pretty significant cost, which I'll also get a little bit into on our next budget discussion and how that might have related to our reserve funds. We have not spent the trails money. Town hall maintenance projects have been postponed. And we had our Humboldt County Sheriff's Office staff shortage. Those are things that we're going to try to put back into play in the next fiscal year. So that being said, without being able to show you some real deep numbers, I kind of wanted to just paint the picture on this meeting that we are determined when we look at the budget to use those goals and priorities as our roadmap coming and going through each fiscal year. And then hear from the council, if you have any questions, anything you want to specifically know at the next meeting, because at the next meeting, we're going to drill down into some numbers. I can say with a lot of confidence that the city did very well financially this year, because of certain things that we did not spend our money on, but also some revenues that were received throughout the year. But this coming year, we're going to have some pretty significant changes. I mean, I think I'm anticipating as of July 1st, we may not be getting any more cell tower rent. City Manager Eli mentioned about the harbor possibly going into a trust status. And no longer receiving some of those revenues. I think the city is going to be in a position, and I'll get more into it on the next meeting, of having to foresee some adjustments, but having these goals and priorities set out in advance gives us sort of like this connection to the past, to give us something to really bite into, to see how we're doing, how well we're doing.
We're sorry. Your conference is ending now. Please hang up.
Are we still there? Okay. So I'm not sure what that was, and I don't like that, but I'm going to go ahead and shut up, and I'll let, if this thing falls apart, I'll have to re-log on and start the meeting. But anyway, if anybody has any questions, we can go ahead and ask them now, but we're coming back to this in a few weeks. And sorry, my screen didn't cooperate, but yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
And like Gabe was saying, we're going to have a special budget meeting in 2 weeks. So we'll continue that. And then in June, we'll do it as needed between our regular meeting and possibly another meeting.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate.
Thank you, Gabe and Eli, for getting us started. I don't know if I'm broken up.
Your visuals are, but your voice is clear. Your visuals.
Let me. Yeah, I know.
Weird.
Let me turn my video off. So if I could just thank you again for this, for getting us started on this, and I just want to. My initial reaction is, I'm hearing about all these wonderful gains we've had in investing in, being able to do the day-to-day business as well as projects, as well as giving Gabe the time and Eli to really think deeply rather about the city and the direction we're going. If we could see in our budget meeting, really what these sort of 2 and 3 year effects are of maintaining some sort of staffing akin to what we have now. I think a large majority of our $650,000 annual general fund is in staffing and the benefits that go with it. And I think if we're going to maintain this, I would like to see the effects of that staffing so that we can be really smart with how we organize our money, because those goals aren't going to go, they're not going to change. And the benefits of having these staff are not going to diminish just because, 1 year has gone by when they've been working on projects. So if we could kind of see, at least a 2-year projection on staffing and what that means with the change in revenue, I think that would really help me out. Other questions, comments from the council for Gabe and Eli?
I just want to say I appreciate the evolution I've seen with you and Gabe and how you've been able to turn those numbers into real meaning for people to see. I think approaching it this year too, going in with this knowledge of it, and when you look at the breakdown of the numbers, then maybe you can refine, where the funds can be allocated. But we're still, it's a small enough budget that you can wrap your head around it. It's just there's as many things going on here as anywhere, it seems like. So thanks a lot for the effort. I look forward to seeing the printout of it, Excel sheet.
Other react?
I have my hand up, but I just realized you probably can't see me, Steve.
Go ahead, Ms. Kelly. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I just very quickly wanted to say thank you, Gabe, for the summary and for the materials in the packet. I know it was very interesting for me to see the budget and the spend as well as the earnings framed vis-a-vis the goals and objectives that the city stated, and that makes total sense strategically for us to look at that. It also, I looked back at the 2015 survey of community wants, and we called it a goals meeting, 2015 spring community goals meeting. And there were a list of project ideas. And if you bucket those project ideas, they fit very neatly with what these goals were for 2022. So things like public safety, solidifying the water supply, community character was mentioned, trails and parks, things like that, Native American partners, and ensuring that we have good communication with our tribal entities and groups. Forests were mentioned, and one thing that of course wasn't is staffing, because that underpins everything. So I think it would be very interesting as we look at this next round of discussions to continue to look at the priorities, and also to look a little bit at sort of how much are we spending, like almost a pie chart, how much are we spending for these different areas? And I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit about public safety, because what I see a lot of other cities doing is spending a lot more money on public safety. And I know for us, it's been an issue of resourcing. And so I do want to talk a little bit next time around about piloting a program where we hire some private security to supplement the public safety officers that we currently have. That's a broader topic, obviously, than we can get into tonight, but I think that's one of the things I'd like to see is just sort of how do we want to divide up the big pie of money that we have? Well, it's not a big pie, but the small pie, reasonably small pie.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jack, West?
I'll just add a little, again, the same thing. I just think this is a great way to look at things, and it gives us an idea of where we're going. And, one of the things we have to think about is that we're going to may have some tough changes coming up, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to figure out how we can keep these things going. But to get this nice group of people that are working for us, it seems like they're really doing a nice job, nice smiling faces out there. So I think we've done a great job of putting this together, and we've done a great job of holding things together this year. I certainly want us to look closely at what the future is going to be, because we do have a lot of changes within the next couple of years I think are kind of spooky. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the actual dollars and cents next time, and see what we're going to be able to do in the future to keep ourselves on track. Thanks a lot. Nice job.
David or Jack Tuttle?
I already spoke.
Okay. How about this general public? Any thoughts about or things that to look forward to in our second May meeting that you'd like to see in this budget discussion? All right, seeing no comments or hands raised, I will bring it back to council. So at this point, we're looking forward to a second May meeting, the fourth Tuesday of May. So counselors and folks, put that in your calendars, that we will be meeting to discuss this, and need be go into June to continue the discussion. But really looking forward for this year's budget and goals meeting. So thank you very much for that. Our last agenda item is an update on elections. And so Gabe is our resident elections expert and liaison. Can you give us an update on this, what we're looking for in November?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this one short because I guess, and I'm not entirely prepared for it. I had a placeholder on the agenda so that I could put a calendar that I typically put together each election year that shows sort of this like merging of whatever elections the city has going. And at this point, what I understand is that we've got a council election coming, and we also have this election to determine whether or not the occupancy tax is going to increase. That's new territory for me. So I was going to lean a little bit on the county on this one to ask them to kind of provide me with some of those benchmark deadlines and a checklist of when things need to happen to occur, to make that occur and to make that show up on the ballot. They're a little tied up right now at the elections department with obviously several things. I guess the county clerk, elections clerk is also current clerk is being is on the ballot. So I need to check in with him and come back to you. I'll probably bring that back at the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June. Things really start to kick off in July. So the sooner I get it to you, the better, mainly for the council member portion of the election. So I'll come back to you at the next meeting with more information on this.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, there's quite a bit of activity right now headed towards the June 7th election. So we look forward to that either at the second meeting in May or the June meeting. So we'll look for those updates. That concludes the discussion decision items, agenda items for this evening. I'm gonna forego future agenda items only because we are going to meet in May. The second meeting section in May, that is going to be budget. At that point, we'll ask for future agenda items, just because we have we want to really focus right now on our budget and goals because of the major changes that Gabe and Eli just outlined. So at this point, that does adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you very much all for attending. And Dave, your hand is up.
Just saying goodbye.
Okay.
The manual goodbye.
Everybody say goodbye to Dave. So thank you very much, everyone, and we will see you around town. Take care.